الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. After talking about the pillars and the obligations of Hajj, and we said the differences between the pillars and obligations is that the pillars, a person has to make the pillars. There's no expiation for it. And the obligations, if a person misses it intentionally, of course, this is haram and he has to expiate for it. If it's missed unintentionally or with an excuse, then there is expiations, which is the dam in this case. Then, if we talk about tawaf as an act of worship, as mentioned before, we'll talk about tawaf, inshallah ta'ala, and sa'i and the jamarat. And then after that, we'll talk about the how to make the hajj in general, inshallah. When it comes to the tawaf, and there are certain conditions to be fulfilled for the tawaf. And the tawaf, as we know, is to go around the Kaaba 7 times. And this is to be done for Umrah as a pillar of Umrah. It's a pillar of Hajj, of course, and it can be a recommended tawaf at any time the person makes tawaf. So this is an act, a unique act of worship that it's not permissible to be done in any place on the face of earth except in the Kaaba, around the Kaaba. And this is the only way for a person to make that particular ibadah. So when people, al billah, they make tawaf around the qubur, for example, or the graves, and these are all acts of shirk. So a tawaf is ibadah, and there's no other spot on the face of earth that it's permissible for someone to make tawaf around except the Kaaba. So as any condition for any ibadah, if we want to write them down, again, I'm not the best in making these types of slides. It was very quick, just the major points. But these conditions are, just to make sure that we count 6, inshallah ta'ala. The first one as the condition for any ibadah is the niyyah, the intentions. Because if someone, it happened that he's just want to make a morning walk, for example, after Fajr, and he find himself walking with the people, one round around the Kaaba, it says, okay, let me finish another 6. It doesn't count. You have to have the intention that you're doing tawaf, like intention of ibadah or any salah. And the Prophet ﷺ clearly stated that الطواف is salah, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أحل الله عز وجل لنا فيها المنطق. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted for us to talk while making tawaf. In salah, you cannot talk. But in tawaf, it's not like it's recommended to talk. But if someone speaks in tawaf, it doesn't break the tawaf. Like the salah, it doesn't break the tawaf. But it's salah. If it's a state of salah, if a person is making the tawaf. Another condition is, the second one, is to cover the awrah, the same way that a person would cover his awrah for the salah. So this is a very obvious one. The number 3 one, which is also for the salah, is the tahara, to be in state of wudu. For tawaf, a person has to be in state of wudu. If a person breaks his wudu, he has to, as exactly in salah, has to leave the salah, make wudu, and come back and start over from the beginning of the salah. So the same thing applies for the tawaf. That if a person during the tawaf breaks his wudu, he has to go and make wudu and then come back and start over. In some rare occasions, where some of the fatawa of the ulama, if it's the tawaf of al-hajj, and it's very crowded and it takes 2 hours or so to make tawaf, and someone broke his wudu and they go make wudu, they have to go make wudu. When they come back, they add to what they've started. But this is a fatwa in very specific situations. But the norm is that a person would go make wudu and start over again. So because the tawaf is salah, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said. So this is a tahara. That's why for women, again, in their monthly cycle, everything in Hajj is permissible for them as far as the actions of Hajj. We're not talking about salah. Everything is permissible for them to do in Hajj except tawaf. Except the tawaf. So, for example, if she made the tawaf and she was in state of tahara, and after she finished the tawaf, the monthly cycle came. She can make the sa'i between the Safa and Marwa. Only the tawaf is not permissible for the woman in her menses, and that's why she has to wait till she's done and then she can make the tawaf. So, tahara is a condition. A fourth condition is that the 7 rounds has to be finished. There's no such a thing as making tawaf 3 rounds and then you quit, even if it's a recommended tawaf. It's like can someone prays 2 rak'ah, but then nafl salah, then after 1 rak'ah and a half, he feels like he wants to leave. It's not permissible for you to leave. You don't say this is recommended salah, I can leave anytime I want. No, it's haram for you to leave, to break your salah unintentional like this without any reason. So the same thing with the tawaf. Even if a person is going to make tawaf as a recommended tawaf, you have to finish the 7 rounds. And and it starts from Al-Hajar al-Aswad. See if I have a, okay, here's the Kaaba, right? You see where's the Hajar al-Aswad? I don't think I can point with a pen, but you see that Hajar al-Aswad is that silver place. This is Al-Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone. The tawaf starts from there. The tawaf starts from Al-Hajar al-Aswad and it ends by the Hajar al-Aswad. It starts there and it ends there. No matter how far a person or close to the Kaaba, you have to start by Al-Hajar al-Aswad. So if you enter the Kaaba or the Mecca or the Masjid al-Haram in any place, right, you don't start your tawaf till you walk with the people, but you're not in state of tawaf till you reach Al-Hajar al-Aswad. Then once you buy the Hajar al-Aswad, then you start your tawaf, and we'll talk about the sunan, but one of which is that you would point your right hand if you're far away from it and you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Then you start your tawaf. And you do the same thing for every round when you come to Al-Hajar al-Aswad. But we're first talking about the obligations. So it starts from Al-Hajar al-Aswad and it ends by Al-Hajar al-Aswad. And you see that on the side where the Hijr Ismail, which is here. I guess I can use the pen. Here you go. Bear with me, inshallah. So it has to be around like this, right? So this Hijr Ismail, even though this picture, I guess it was during the COVID. So this part here, this is part of the Kaaba. You know, Hijr Ismail, people go pray inside. This is part of the Kaaba. This is all Kaaba. And there's a history behind this. And this is how it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the people of Quraysh, when they were rebuilding the Kaaba, they were short on means to build it, so they built it this way. So then this part was left. And then it was actually the Kaaba was rebuilt again, and then it was when they wanted to build it again, and the Imam, they said, we don't want to play with this matter so that people would think that anytime a ruler come, he can change the building of the Kaaba. So they kept it that way like this. So, and it should be kept like this. So the tawaf is around from here. If a person goes inside, that breaks the tawaf. So it starts from Al-Hajar al-Aswad, and 1 round is all the way to the end. We didn't talk about what's recommended yet. So this is as far as an obligation. Another obligation, which is number 6, is the same way when you do in the salah and wudu, al-muwala. Muwala, that means the continuity of it. So when you do the 7 rounds, you do it in a continuous way. You don't make 3, then you go have dinner, come back, finish the 4. There's no such a thing. But some things doesn't break the continuity of the tawaf. Salatul Fard. So they made the adhan, and you don't have to wait till the iqamah of the salah. You're making tawaf, and the adhan of Salatul Asr is called. Right? And people start to slow down, and they stop, and they make sunnah and things like this. You don't have to keep on continuing till the Fard, the iqamah is made, because it might be very difficult for people. If you stop there, even that's before the iqamah, that's fine. You stop in whatever point you stop, you make your sunnah, that's fine. You wait for the iqamah, and they make the iqamah, you pray Salatul Asr, for example, and then after you finish, you can finish even the dhikr, but nobody would make tawaf, would allow you to that. You have to stand right away. So then you continue from the spot where you stopped. You continue there. You don't have to start from the very beginning of the round. You continue from where you stopped because of the salah. So the salah doesn't break the continuity of it. Salatul Janazah doesn't break the continuity of it. So if they call for Salatul Janazah, you stop and you make Salatul Janazah, and you don't have to start from the beginning of the round. The same thing if a person felt tired, and he stopped or rested for some time because he's tired, that's fine. And he continue or she continue right after that from the same spot that they stopped without having to repeat around or so. But this is a condition, the continuity to be around the Kaaba. And since this is mentioned, then so these are the six basically things that is an obligations. So as we said, the niyyah, covering the aura, the tahara, the purification, to finish the 7 rounds from the black stone till you reach the black stone, and the continuity to make the 7 rounds and to make the tawaf around the entire Kaaba and to have the continuity of it. When it comes to the recommended acts, when you first come to any tawaf, as we said, you start with al-hajar, al-aswad, and the ideal situation is that you make istilam of it. You kiss al-hajar al-aswad, the black stone, if you're able to. If you can't, then you touch it. Then if you can, then from a distance you point with your hand and you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. And you can even touch it with a stick if you have a stick. So you say Allahu Akbar every round. Say Bismillah as usually you would say Bismillah in anywhere. In the hadith of the Prophet والسلام, the hadith of Ibn Umar, and we have time inshallah to mention some of these hadith. He said, رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يستلم. I saw the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام يستلم الحجر الأسود. That means he touched the حجر الأسود ويقبله. So touch it and kissing الحجر الأسود. So a man said to Abdullah ibn Umar, أرأيت إن غلبت عليه أرأيت إن زحمت. What do I do if I'm overpowered, it's so crowded, I'm not able to? So Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, he said, اجعل أرأيت باليمن. Leave أرأيت in Yemen. Leave what if in Yemen. The man was from Yemen. So he kept on saying, what if? So leave it in Yemen. I'm telling you, this is what I saw the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So, and that's why if a person is not able to do so, then is to, from a distance, to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. And where is when a person passes by it. There's a green light by the wall that shows you the end of the tawaf. But you don't have to even guide yourself with the green light. You won't miss the green light, but you don't have to. And it used to, even before, alhamdulillah, that they removed it, they used to have a line right there on the ground from the Hajar Aswad like this, brown, as to mark the beginning of the tawaf. And this used to make everybody stop at the line because this is a line. And then they move. So alhamdulillah, they removed it because the matter is easy. And you don't have, it's not by the line where you are, just once from a distance you see it and you feel like you're right there by the Hajar. So you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and you keep on going. And it's, the last round, you don't say Allahu Akbar. When you do the 7 ones, then the last one, once you get by Al-Hajj Al-Aswad, you just finish and you leave. You don't say Allahu Akbar. You do it later. And if you don't do it later, as we will talk about it, inshallah ta'ala. So when it comes to the recommended acts, in this case, you make tawaf, you can read Quran, you can make dhikr, you can make dua. There's no specific adhkar, as always need to be mentioned, where people have to say this in the first round, to say this in the second round. All of that is not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And actually people make it difficult for themselves and they make it difficult for others. Because people think that this is part of the tawaf and they have to make sure that they say this and they say that. All kinds of things that is not according to the sunnah, and it's bid'ah, even innovations in the deen, where people also do the collective act of adhkar or dua and screaming and yelling and things like this. This is all not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Each person on their own. If a person doesn't know anything, recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't have to raise your hands with the dua. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for matters of goodness in this life and in the hereafter. Tasbih, tahleel, reciting Quran, anything. And to be busy with the ibadah and not to use the phone or taking selfies and all of these types of things, but to be busy with the ibadah. Any dua during the tawaf, and then the last corner, which is this corner right here. This is a Rukn al-Yamani. Sorry, I'm making it. Okay, so here, when you go by every Rukn, like this is one corner, this is one corner, this is one corner, and this is another corner. So every corner points to something, right? So this corner right there, this corner points to Al-Yaman. That's why it's called Al-Rukn al-Yamani. Its direction is to the Yemen. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to يستلم الركن اليماني. If he has the means, he would touch it عليه الصلاة والسلام. Nothing to be said. He used to touch it عليه الصلاة والسلام. But if from a distance, no touching and no pointing. So some people, they come to the Rukn al-Yamani right there, and if they are from a distance, they would point to it. No, there's no such a thing. It's only if you're right there, you touch it. And there's nothing to be said. If you're from a distance, you just go on. And the only dhikr that is recommended, where the Prophet ﷺ would say between al-Rukn al-Yamani, this Rukn, and the Hajj al-Aswad, meaning in the last corner of the Kaaba, is رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. To repeat it while you are in the last fourth of the corner of the Kaaba. Other than that, it's just general dua. And this is where the hadith of Abdullah ibn Sa'ib, he said, I heard the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam يقول ما بين الركنين. He would say between the two corners, ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. So after finishing the seven, again, nothing else specific mentioned. After finishing the seven rounds, then is to, from the recommended acts, is to pray the 2 rak'ah behind Maqam Ibrahim. As you see in this picture, it shows the tip of it. This is Maqam Ibrahim right there. This tip of it, right there. This is Maqam Ibrahim, which is where Ibrahim alayhi salam, he stood to build the Kaaba, and it used to be attached to the Kaaba, of course, but they removed it back at the time of Umar, radiallahu anhu. So, and this is clearly stated in the Quran to make 2 rak'ah, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. Make the Maqam Ibrahim as a place to make salah behind it. And the Prophet ﷺ, as the hadith of Ibn Umar, that the Prophet ﷺ came, فَطَافَ بِالْبَيْتِ سَبْعًا. He made 7 rounds around the Kaaba, وَصَلَّى خَلْفَ الْمَقَامِ, and he prayed behind the Maqam 2 rak'ah, and he made the tawaf between the Safa and Marwa. And he says, وَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have in the Prophet ﷺ the best example. Ideally to be done behind al-maqam. Doesn't have to be right behind it. Any place behind it, even if it's far. If a person is not able to, and people should follow, of course, the instructions, any place in the haram is fine. 2 rak'ah, recommended 2 rak'ah to be prayed. But what's for sure something not to be done is to stand on the way when people are making tawaf. And this is a rule, this is a principle in matter of the tawaf that can be carried in many other occasions or many other things. If there is a place where the only place for people to make tawaf is there, then tawaf is a priority before anything else. If someone stand there and make his salah? No, he has no rights. If people walk in front of that person, no sutra for him, no sutra for him, because the tawaf comes first. Because where else can make tawaf? But he can make the salah any other place. So that's why a person should stay away. And if you're making tawaf and you find yourself, you're going to cut someone's salah, there's no sutra for such a person. He needs to be back where he can make his salah. So this is where the 2 rak'ah. And what's recommended after making the 7 rounds. And then, as we said, the last one, you don't say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, don't say Allahu Akbar. You go pray the 2 rak'ah. And then the Prophet ﷺ would drink from Zamzam حتى يتضلع منها, till his ribs are big. That means he drinks as much as he can. ﷺ, and he said, ماء زمزم لما شرب له. Zamzam is whatever you drink it for. You make dua or with your intention. You're drinking Zamzam for shifa, for cure, for you to memorize the Quran, for you to enter Jannah, whatever intentions, and you make dua. And then after drinking Zamzam, the Prophet ﷺ would come back, and at least, he would go to the Hajj al-Aswad and yastalim. Right? Since he did not do it in the last one, he would do this after the 2 rak'ah, and after drinking Zamzam, he would come back and touch the Hajj al-Aswad, and he leaves. Of course, when it's crowded, you're not able to do that. So after you finish the 2 rak'ah and drinking Zamzam, you can point to the Hajj al-Aswad and you say Allahu Akbar, and then you leave. And if it's not done, it's fine. You still finished with the tawaf. So this is clear. This is how the Prophet ﷺ did it. This is then after that to go to As-Safa or Marwa if it's Hajj or Umrah. Because As-Safa wal Marwa is only to be done if it's Umrah or Hajj. There's no recommended sa'i between As-Safa wal Marwa. You have to be in state of nusuk. You have to be in state of ihram or you're making Hajj. And As-Safa wal Marwa, as we know, is which is now in the Haram. Let's see here what I have here. No. So it's in the Haram, but it's supposed to be outside the Haram. So religiously, As-Safa al Marwa is not within the Masjid al-Haram. So that's why, again, for women, for example, when they do the sa'i, they're religiously outside of the Haram if they make the sa'i between the Safa and the Marwa. And the Safa and Marwa, as we know, the two mounts where Hajar, alayhi salam, she went between them 7 times. So as far as to be done in in Hajj or Umrah is to start with the Safa and to end with the Marwa. This is one. And there is adhkar to be said, and to make sure, inshallah ta'ala, the adhkar to be said according to the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And a person going to the Safa and facing the Kaaba, when he reaches by the Safa, he looks at the Kaaba if it's feasible, and raise one's hand and to say the ayah in the beginning, in the Safa and Marwa min sha'airillah, the ayah, and then to make a specific dua and to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after this dhikr. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam would make a long dua, and then repeat the dhikr again, and then to make the dua, and then to repeat the dhikr again 3 times. And this is, you can get this from anywhere, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that when he first went to As-Safa, while he was going on top of the Safa, he says, Inna Safa wal Marwa min sha'airillah, the ayah. He says, Abda'u bima bada'a bihi Allah. I start with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started with, that he mentioned As-Safa first. And then once he saw the house, the Kaaba, he faced the Qibla, and he says, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika. First he says, Allahu Akbar. And then he said, لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير لا إله إلا الله وحده أنجز وعده ونصر عبده وهزم الأحزاب وحده ثم دعا. Then he makes dua. And then after the dua, he repeats the dhikr again. Then dua again. Then repeat the dhikr again, and then dua again, and then he leaves. And he goes to the Marwa. And this is definitely an essential thing for a person to have, like Hisn Muslim, the Muslim Citadel, or something like this, where the authentic adhkar from the Prophet ﷺ to be said. 7 rounds, the same thing with the tawaf around the Kaaba, but the 7 rounds from As-Safa to Al-Marwa, it counts as 1. And from the Marwa to the Safa, 2. So you start from As-Safa, you end the last round by Al-Marwa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the Prophet ﷺ would walk, but between where the green light is, which is the lowest part of the wadi, the lowest part of the valley, where Hajar, she ran in this area, he would run ﷺ with short, not with short distance. Actually, we missed something in that. In the tawaf, we didn't mention. But for the Safa to go as fast as as a person can, only for men, not for women. And there's no specific dhikr to be said. And that's as the hadith, ثم نزل المروة حتى إذا انصبت قدماه رمل في بطن الوادي. So he would run عليه الصلاة والسلام. For women, they walk. And of course, if someone with his wife, he should not leave her and go. So this is where the sa'i between the Safa and the Marwa, and there's mentioned here some conditions there and some recommended acts. But the conditions is, as we heard, you start from a Safa, because if a person starts with the Marwa, it doesn't count. Sometimes you find yourself by the Marwa after the Tawaf. So you have to walk all the way to the Safa, and that doesn't count. You have to start from a Safa, and you have to make sure that you go the entire distance between a Safa and Marwa. This is the second one. And the continuity also is something that is a must. If a person stops to rest, that's fine. But not to leave and come back after a few hours to continue. Can you have time between a tawaf and a sa'i? Yes. If you make tawaf, you can rest and come back and make sa'i, no problem. You don't have to do it right after the tawaf. But within the sa'i, when you're doing it, you're supposed to have that continuity while doing it. And some of the recommended acts, as we heard. So this is where the sunan, and the sunan, as we said, is to run and to make the dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to face the Kaaba, both in the Safa and in the Marwa. So every time you make the dua to the best of one's ability. This is a Safa wal Marwa, right? again, a tawaf is at any time. What we missed in the tawaf, if you are in ihram, if you're wearing the clothing of al-ihram, not because it happened that you're wearing the clothing of al-ihram, that means you are doing either umrah or tawaf al-qudum when you first go to Mecca. Your 3 rounds in the beginning of the tawaf, there is a ramal in it, where the Prophet ﷺ, he did it and he said to the companions to do it. And that is to run with muqarabat al-khuta, that means with short steps in the first rounds, if there is space, of course. And al-idtiba' is to show the right shoulder, to show the right shoulder in the entire tawaf. So al-ramal, to go to run in the first 3 rounds for men only, the first 3 rounds only, if there is space. Al-idtiba', which is to show the right shoulder, is in the entire 7 rounds. Not before and not after. So those who have, they show their right shoulder before the tawaf, this is not from the sunnah. And after making the 7 rounds, before making the 2 rak'ah, is to cover the 2 shoulders, not to pray with the shoulder being exposed. So this is with the tawaf and the sa'i. The jamarat, which is to be done on the 10th and the 11th and the 12th. And for those who stay in Mina more, they stay for the 13th. This is the jamarat. See if I still have that picture there. Here you go. Okay. This is, I just got it now from the internet with the pictures. It's not the real pictures, of course, of the jamarat. As you see here, this is a jamra, the first one, the jamra sughra, the smaller one. It's not size-wise a small one, but they call it the small one. They're both, all of them, they have the same size, but they call it the small one. So with this drawing here, you can see, just to look at the small one, meaning the first one, when you're coming from Mina, the bigger one is the closest to Mecca. And let me, here is, if you see here, this is Mecca. You see Mecca right there. Here is Al-Masjid Al-Haram. And if you see where's Mina, this white part is all Mina. This right there is Mina. Right? These are the tents of Mina. And the Jamarat is right there. These are the Jamarat. This is Jamarat Al-Aqaba, this one. This is the big one. And this is the middle one. And this is the small one. Right? You see them? So for the Jamarat, this is when it's going to happen. Let's first look here. This is Mecca. This is Mina. Muzdalifa is right there. This is Muzdalifa. Okay? This is Muzdalifa, where only one night is to be spent. This whole area is Muzdalifa. And Arafah is right there. This is Masjid Namir. With the Prophet ﷺ, he was in Arafah in Masjid Namira, which is now the Masjid. He prayed there. And in Masjid Namira, part of it is in Arafah and part of it is outside of Arafah. There are marks to mark the valley of Arafah, right? So again, so when we look at this here from a bigger picture, I hope it's clear. So here's Mecca, and this will, when we talk about when the 8th and things like this, but let's first say the Jamarat. But briefly, you are in Mecca, you make your ihram on the 8th after you made the tamattu', and then you go to Mina. You go to Mina, whatever place you're going to be in Mina, you stay in Mina the 8th. And then the 9th, you go to Arafah. You pass by Muzdalifah. And then after the Maghrib of Arafah, you come to Muzdalifah, you back here to Muzdalifah to spend the night in this area. As you see, there's no tents here because people spend the night here in the openness of Muzdalifah. And then after you finish with Muzdalifah, then you go back to, you go to the Jamrah. So on the 10th, you'll come to Jamrat al-Aqaba, which is this one. And of course, it's covered. So that, as you see here, there's levels, right? There's the bottom level, top, many levels, 3 levels or so. So you throw only Jamrat al-Aqaba. the last one, which is the closest to Mecca. When we say the closest to Mecca means what? Here is Mecca. So which one is closer to Mecca? This is Jamratul Aqaba, right? So on the 10th, you throw Jamratul Aqaba only. The 11th, you have to do the small, then the middle, then the big one. You're coming already from Mina. So the first one that you come to is the small one, then the middle one, then the Aqaba. If we go back to this drawing here, this is the perfect way to do it, and it doesn't have to be this way. This is how the Prophet ﷺ, he made the Rami of a Jamal. I'm not able to mark with the pen, but if you see the small one, the Prophet ﷺ coming to the small one, he would throw the Jamrah from any place. But after he threw the Jamrah 7, it's best to throw it to make Mecca on your left side. So if you're going this way, you're facing the Jamrah, and Mecca is on your left side, right? This way. After he would make the 7 pebbles, and this is the 11th, right? The 11th day of the Hajj. He would say, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and he throw it. And you have to throw it like this. You cannot throw it like this. You cannot throw it like this if you're right there. It has to be like that. And you wait till you're very close, and you throw it like that. And then the Prophet ﷺ, after throwing the Jamarat, and the Jamarat, as the Prophet ﷺ, in the Maju'il al-Tawaf wal-Jimar, and the Sa'i, all of that for what? For the dhikr of Allah. It's not stoning shaitan or anything like this. It's for the dhikr of Allah. Yes, at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was going after the shaitan. But this becomes part of the rituals of Hajj as dhikr. As mentioned before, when you say, now when we're sitting here saying Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, it's great, mashallah. But you go all the way to be in that spot, on that time, to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, it's the greatest thing. So this is what is meant to be there. It's to put the effort to make the dhikr there, this exactly the same way. So throwing the jamrah, and then the Prophet ﷺ, you see that second person, he would go to all the way to the right. To the right of the jamarat. Of course, it's crowded, people will push you away and things like this. If you can, you go all the way to the right and face Mecca. They're all facing Mecca this way. Face Mecca and make dua. Right? So, and it's a long dua. Prophet ﷺ would make a long dua. And from the same spot, from the same direction, you go straight to the middle one. So you see the guy where he's throwing the jamrah from where? From that side. Right? From you did this the small one from the left side. If you're going this way to the jamrah, from the left side, and then you do a zigzag. You go all the way to the right and you make dua. Then you go from the same direction to the middle one. You throw it from that where you're coming from. Then you go all the way after the jamrah to the left on the other side. So you come here as the one before last, would make dua facing Mecca as long as a person can. Then to go from the same direction till Jamra al-Kubra. As they say, al-Kubra, which is the last one closer to Mecca, your Mecca is on your left side while you're throwing the Jamra, if you can. But if you do it in any place, there is no harm. So if we go here again, so when you're going, again, you're throwing here, and then you go to the other side, and then you go this way, and then you go the other side. So when you're throwing the Jamra, as you see, this is Mecca, and you see the tower, of course, now it becomes very clear. So you would face Mecca while you're making the dua. Okay, so this is where the Jamra is, the Jamarat. And again, it doesn't have to be done this way. And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he would make takbir, everyone with 7 Jamarat. Do you have to take the hasa or the pebbles from Muzdalifah? You don't have to. But the pebbles have to be picked up from anything within the haram. You cannot pick them up from Arafah. Arafah is outside of the haram. So if someone wants to make Umrah, for example, they don't have to go to Masjid Aisha. If they go to Arafah, that's fine because they're outside of al-Haram. Muzdalifah is within the Haram. So whether it's Muzdalifah, whether it's in Mina, whether it's on the way, but the Prophet ﷺ, when he was in Muzdalifah, he said to Abdullah ibn Abbas, pick the pebbles for me. And he said, when he showed them the pebbles, he said, yes, like this, hasal khadf, where they used to put them in between their fingers and throw it like this. Like the pea, like a small pea, but not big. And the Prophet ﷺ said, إِيَّاكُمُ الْغُلُوُّ. Don't be aware, be warned against extremism. Do not get the big ones. And this is where the famous hadith of the al-ghulu or extremism. In Mina, as you see, this is Masjid al-Khif. You see that Masjid Al-Khif? See the menorah here, right? This is Masjid Al-Khif, where the Prophet ﷺ stayed in Mina, where he said ﷺ, 70 prophets of Allah, they prayed there. And Musa ﷺ, he came to Mina and he prayed as the Prophet ﷺ said. But again, we don't want to make this as a historical thing, just to get an idea so that we have the Jamarat. When it comes to the Jamarat, a person should do it himself. It starts from Jamratul Aqaba, from the middle of the night of the after Arafat. The 11th and the 12th, it starts from Zawal time. So if you are in the 11th, you should not throw the Jamrah before Dhuhr time. You should throw it from Zawal time. The ideal is that the Prophet ﷺ will go to the Jamrah before Dhuhr, and he would stand there and wait for the Zawal. Once the sun goes this way, that means this is the beginning time of Dhuhr, he would throw ﷺ the Jamarat, the small one, then the middle one, then the major one, and then he would go back to the tent. When they say 24 hours and they put schedule for people, if you're forced, that's fine, but do not throw the Jamrah before Dhuhr. In the 11th and the 12th, it does not count. You can go later, but don't do it early. So if you don't do it at Dhuhr time, you can do it after Asr. You can do it at night if you're not able to, but don't do it before its time. Because the Prophet ﷺ would make sure that he stand there and wait, and he would not do it before Dhuhr whatsoever. And this is for the 11th and for the 12th. If a person is not able to throw the Jamarat whatsoever, he can have someone else to do it on their behalf. But before we get to that choice, a person can make up the Jamarat in the last day. So he can go the last day and do all of them with one trip only. That means the small one, 7, 7, 7. If he's in the third day, or 7, 7. And then the next one, this is if a person is not able to. He was extremely sick or someone extremely old. That's better than having someone else to do it on one's behalf on every day. But of course, yani, inshallah ta'ala, the matter is easy when it comes to this. Right, so this is also briefly the Jamarat and the Dua. When it comes to, and then I have to, inshallah, if you have any questions, briefly the days of Hajj. You arrive whenever time you arrive, you make Umrah, right? You make Umrah first. If you're making Hajj Tamattu', and the pillars of Umrah is nothing but Al-Ihram wa Tawaf wa Sa'i. There's no Arafah, of course, in Umrah. And you have to shave or shorten. And if you're making the Umrah before Hajj, then shortening is better so that you can leave the shaving for Hajj. And you make the Ihram from the Miqat. You finish the Umrah, you relieve yourself from the Ihram, you enjoy yourself being in Mecca, whatever, till the 8th of the Hajj. Once the 8th of the Hajj comes, and you are in Mecca, any place, in your place in the morning, whatever, of course, when they'll take you and things like this, you say labbaik Allahumma hajj. After taking the shower and doing what you did before with al-ihram, you say labbaik Allahumma hajj, and you become in the state of al-ihram. And you go to Mina. You go to Mina here in the 8th of the Hajj. And you stay in Mina, and this is now the 8th of the Hajj. The Prophet ﷺ, I'm saying the Prophet ﷺ prayed in Mina on the 8th of the Hajj, Salatul Dhuhr, and Al-Asr, and Al-Maghrib, and Al-Isha, and Fajr. So the 8th, he prayed these prayers, but he made Qasr. Al-Dhuhr, he prayed it 2 rak'ah in the time of Dhuhr. Al-Asr, 2 rak'ah in the time of Asr. Maghrib, 3 rak'ah. Isha, 2 rak'ah at the time of Isha. He did not combine the Salah, but he prayed it each Salah in its time, but 2 rak'ah only. With Adhan and Iqamah, each group in their tents and things like this. You don't have to gather everybody in one place. And this is how things are in Hajj. And the Qasr here, when you're making Qasr, is not because you're a traveler. Meaning the people of Mecca, they also make Qasr. So this is Qasr Nusuk. This is Qasr Hajj. Hajj Qasr, not traveling Qasr of the Salah. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ did that without Jam. And therefore there's no Sunnah prayer in the 8th of the Hajj. No Sunnah Dhuhr prayed, no Sunnah of Al-Maghrib, no Sunnah of Al-Isha. But he ﷺ, if we pray the witr, the night prayer, yes, he would not leave the witr and the night prayer usually, and especially the witr. And Salatul Fajr, he prayed there, and Sunnatul Fajr is to be prayed. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never missed Sunnatul Fajr. But to leave the Sunnah on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, this is something that the Prophet ﷺ did. If you want to pray, it's up to you, but it's to leave it, you get the rewards for it, inshallah ta'ala. And the 8th is called Yawm al-Tarwiyah, where the camels would drink and things, like getting yourself ready for the journey to come. It's from the Sunan of Al-Hajj. It's not from Wajibat Al-Hajj. It's not an obligation. It's not a pillar. So if people, they skip it and they go straight to Arafah, that's fine. The Hajj is valid. It's definitely stressed and recommended to go to Mina and to be in Mina and to rest in Mina on that 8th and to prepare oneself before the day of Arafah, which is the main day, the most important one in Hajj. And this is where the sins are forgiven and people are freed from the hellfire, and the closest that a person is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the shaitan, as the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam, he said, never seen more humiliated than he is seen in the day of Arafah. Why? Because of he sees how the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showers everyone. And they all get forgiven and the major sins are forgiven. This is the day where a person returns from Hajj, as the hadith, كَيَوْمِ وَلَدَتْهُ أُمُّهُ, the same day as if his mother gave birth to him. So the importance of the day of Arafah requires for the person to prepare himself, not just physically, yes, to sleep and to take enough rest for the next day, but also to prepare one's heart for the day of Arafah. The day of Arafah, which is the 9th, after praying Salatul Fajr in Mina, the Prophet ﷺ prayed Fajr and made adhkar till after sunrise. Till after sunrise. If they say leave early and things like this, of course, you cannot miss your group, so you have to leave. But I'm talking about how the Prophet ﷺ did it. He went to Arafah after sunrise, making talbiyah. And by the way, the talbiyah is once you are in ihram, لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. Right? Anytime, especially if you move from one state to the other, it's more stressed. Meaning, you said at the miqat, you made the niyyah of al-umrah or hajj, لبيك اللهم hajj. Then you start making talbiyah. You got tired, you stopped. You're moving from one place to the other, make talbiyah. The bus start moving, make talbiyah. Then maybe people will stop because they're tired. Every time you change your being of being walking or standing or riding, then to start again the talbiyah. So the Prophet ﷺ going to Arafah, making talbiyah and raising voice with the talbiyah and the virtue of it, of course. And then the Prophet ﷺ, when he went from Mina all the way to Arafah, and this is where Masjid Namira, this is the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ, he stayed there, and he did not enter Arafah till after the Zawal. So part of the masjid is in Arafah, and part of it is outside of Arafah. Right? So if the Qibla is this way, so the last part of the masjid is outside of Arafah. No, I'm sorry, the front part of the masjid. The Imam, when he's giving the khutbah in Arafah, he's outside of Arafah, in Namir. And the first half of the masjid or so, they're all outside of Arafah. Of course, when you are in Arafah, you go where they put you in your campgrounds or whatever. There's no need for you to go to Masjid Namira or Jabal al-Rahma and things like this. It's become waste of the time for a person, wasting his time not making dua and things like this. Plus, he can easily get lost. And any place in Arafah is valid. So that doesn't have to be there. And the Prophet ﷺ, as people think that he went to the top of the Mount of Ar-Rahmah, this is not true. But he stood there in the bottom of it, ﷺ, but he said all of Arafah is mawqif. All of Arafah is valid and it's equal in rewards, inshallah ta'ala. So the Prophet ﷺ, he did not enter Arafah till after he prayed Dhuhr and Asr outside of Arafah. So he prayed Dhuhr and Asr Jam' and Qasr. And then after that, and after he addressed the people and the khutbah and things like this, then he entered Arafah. If people entered Arafah in the morning, that's fine. But there's no events of Arafah. So you go to your tent, you sleep in the morning. If you get there early, you rest. The events of Arafah didn't start. Then at the time of Dhuhr, people to pray in their tents, the Dhuhr and Asr with one adhan and two iqamah, two rak'ah and two rak'ah. And then after that, to start with the dhikr and the dua and the Quran all the way to Maghrib time. And this is again the main course and the main and the most important day of Hajj. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أفضل ما قلت أنا والنبيون من قبلي. The best thing that I said, me and the prophets before me in the day of Arafah is لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. So to say it as much as a person can, and of course the dua, and especially towards the end of the day, the matter becomes more intense when it comes to the dua. So this is the Arafah and what's in it in virtue and dua and things like this. Once Maghrib, the sun sets, the Prophet ﷺ left Arafah to Muzdalifah. He did not pray Maghrib in its time in Arafah. He combined Maghrib and Isha at the time of Isha in Muzdalifah. And as we said, as a wajib of al-Hajj, if someone is inside of Arafah from any time after Dhuhr, it is not permissible to leave till the sunset. After sunset, going with ease to Muzdalifah. So if this is Arafah, then of course with the buses and things like this, then to go to Muzdalifah, which is here. Looks like it's close, but it's, maybe, I think it's maybe 15 or something kilometers, something like this. So to go to Muzdalifah in all of these places, even though the Prophet ﷺ, he was by the Mash'ar al-Haram, but he said all of Muzdalifah is a place, is Jam', they call it Jam'. And this is where after Maghrib, you go there to Muzdalifah, ideally to wait and pray Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah. Once you reach, you make wudu, whatever, you make adhan, one adhan, each group, they make their salah. Everybody is gathered, you find each group, of course, they have a huge piece of land where you find thousands of people are there. Of course, they don't pray one jama'ah together. Whatever group of people, they make their own jama'at. So they make one adhan and two iqamah. Iqamah for Salatul Maghrib and iqamah for Salatul Isha. Maghrib 3 rak'ah, Isha 2 rak'ah. And this is where the Prophet ﷺ in Muzdalifah, there's a differences of opinions whether the Prophet ﷺ prayed even witr or not. Because he slept ﷺ. But the correct opinion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, pray witr. And that's it. No qiyamul layl. The Prophet ﷺ didn't even pray qiyamul layl on that night. He slept ﷺ, and if you're able to sleep, enjoy the sleep in Muzdalifah. So he slept ﷺ till Fajr. The women, the elders, whoever has a condition to leave in the middle of the night, that's fine. Or if the group is leaving, as long as it's after the middle of the night, people can leave from Muzdalifah, they fulfill the obligation by spending more of half of the night. If people can stay till Fajr, mashallah, this is what is perfect. He prayed Fajr alayhi salatu wasalam in Muzdalifah, and he stood up and he made dua and dhikr till right before sunrise. In the ninth of the day before, in ninth of the Hijjah in Mina, he went to Arafah, start leaving after sunrise, right? In Muzdalifah, the Prophet ﷺ started moving before sunrise, going to the Jamrah. He stood and he made dua, and this is where the time is, the dua is accepted after Fajr in the 10th. Now the 10th, this is the day of Eid. This is Yawm al-Nahr, the day of slaughtering. So he prayed Fajr alayhi salatu wasalam, and of course with Sunnat al-Fajr, and then after that made the adhkar and the dua, and then he left, going ideally again to Jamrat al-Aqaba. Here now, not a tricky part or anything, but the 10th of the Hijjah, there are a'mal, very important actions to be done on the 10th of the Hijjah. You have Jamrat al-Aqaba, which is that last one. There's Jamrat al-Aqaba with 7 pebbles. You have shaving the head or shortening the hair. You have tawaf of al-Hajj or tawaf al-Ifada, and the sa'i if a person making tamattu', tawaf and sa'i. If a person making ifrad or qiran, if they did the sa'i in the beginning, they don't have to make sa'i then. If they didn't, then they make sa'i. So you have tawaf and sa'i. And the slaughtering is not part of the actions that has to be done on the 10th. So again, you have 4 actions. You have the throwing the jamrah of al-Aqaba. You have the shaving or shortening the hair, and you have the tawaf and sa'i, and you have the hajj. If the first 3, if you do 2 of them, you can relieve yourself from al-ihram, except women. So everything, this is how it goes. There are three actions in the 10th of the Hijjah that counts. Again, it's the Jamrat al-Aqaba, shaving or shortening the hair, and the tawaf. The Prophet ﷺ did it in that order. He threw the Jamrah. Then he ﷺ slaughtered, he shaved, and then he went to make tawaf. But the three, excluding the slaughtering, to throw the jamrah, then to shave or to shorten, and then to make tawaf. And every time the Prophet ﷺ was asked on that day, people said, I shaved before I threw the jamrah. He said, If'al wal haraj. The Prophet ﷺ himself, he said, do and there's no harm on you. Someone said, I made tawaf before I shaved. If'al wal haraj. Do and there's no harm. So there's no significance, there's no importance of the order of things. Do whatever is easy. Yes, if you can do it in that order, this is perfect. If not, there's no harm. Especially when people leave in the middle of the night, some of them, they go straight to the haram. They made it easy for them to make tawaf first before the crowd comes. So they make tawaf with their clothing of al-ihram. Then they shave their heads. If you do 2 out of 3, everything becomes permissible except women, except the relations. So if they do the 3, everything becomes permissible. So for example, if people go throw the jamrah first, and then they shave, then they change their clothes and they take their shower and everything, and then they go to make their tawaf with their normal clothing. If they make the tawaf first and then they shave, then they can take their shower and clothes and so on, and then they go through the jamrah. So 2 has to be done for the person to relieve himself from all of the mahdurat or what's forbidden for ihram. 2, everything becomes permissible except relations between husband and wife. And if it's the 3, everything becomes permissible. Right? So here this is for the 10th. Clear with these actions on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. And if something is missed, some people, they don't make the tawaf on the 10th. That's fine. It can be done later. If they do 2 things, which is, again, will be the jamrah and shaving. They can change their clothes and they stay in Mina. They didn't do the tawaf, that's fine. But then wearing the normal clothing and they get to do it the next day or the day after, that's fine. So whatever is easy, as long as they do 2 actions, then they can take their ihram and they wear normal clothing. And then after that, ideally, again, the Prophet ﷺ, this is to show how things were at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, before sunrise from Muzdalifah, he went to Mina. I guess the connection is getting, after Muzdalifah, he went to Mina and he threw the Jamrah, and he went and he slaughtered ﷺ 60 of the animals. And he went ﷺ and he shaved, and starting with the right side and then the left. And he went and he made tawaf and sa'i, and he returned to Mecca, to Mina, and prayed dhuhr there. All of that, was between sunrise and dhuhr. And he made it for Mina to make dhuhr. Of course, if nowadays, if you do that, if you make it for Isha, and if you do it in that order, this is an amazing thing to be done. But anyway, so then why? Because you need to spend the night in Mina. So if you get to if a person is busy making tawaf and it was late, and he end up coming to Mina after the middle of the night, and he was not doing anything but being busy with the acts of ibadah, there's no dam on that person. Why? Because he was making tawaf. And people, of course, when some of the logistics, they have a place to stay, so you can use that place while after you through Jamrat al-Aqaba, you shaved your head, you go to the apartment or to the hotel, you change your clothes and you take a shower and things like this, and then you go to the haram and you make your tawaf, and then you need to go to Mina. And some people, they go to the hotels. No, you have to spend the nights in Mina, right? And that's why then after the 10th, it's the 11th. You spend the night in Mina, or most of the night in Mina. And then you have the 11th of the Hijjah. You have to throw the 3 jamarat from Dhuhr time. There's nothing to be done. If a person done all of that, or if a person did make the tawaf, they go make the tawaf and come back. But there's nothing but the 3 jamarat. On the 11th, they do that from Dhuhr anytime afterwards. And you do the same thing as with the jamarat as we mentioned. And then the 12th, you do the same thing, the jamarat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ تَعَجَّلَ وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ فِي أَيَّامٍ مَعْدُودَاتٍ فَمَنْ تَعَجَّلَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ وَمَنْ تَأَخَّرَ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ لِمَنِ اتَّقَى. If people they leave after the second day of Ayam al-Tashriq, the 12th, there's no harm on them. If they stay for the third, mashallah, there's no harm and it's better for them. So if the 12th they throw the Jamrah and they leave to go to Mecca, this is good. If they stay for another day, they have to throw the Jamrat again on the 13th. The same thing, the Sughra, then the middle, then the major one. And then they go to Mecca. And then they go to Mecca. And what's left for them to stay in Mecca is to make Tawaf al-Wada'. If someone did make the Tawaf of al-Hajj, then they make it then. Some people, they do this because it's difficult for them. So after they do Muzdalifah and they go to Mina, and they don't go make for the Tawaf, they stay in Mina till Ayyam al-Tashriq is over, and they go to Mecca. And when they go to Mecca, they make the Tawaf of al-Hajj. That's fine. Because he did two things in the 10th, which is the Jamrah and the shaving. So your clothing, normally you would wear, you take the ihram off and things like this. Everything become permissive except women till you make the Tawaf of al-Hajj. And the same thing, if person leaving right afterwards, they can make Tawaf al-Hajj, Tawaf al-Ifada, and Tawaf al-Wada' as one Tawaf, and then they leave from Mecca. And then what's left from the wajibat is Tawaf al-Wada', which is the last thing that a person would do before he leaves to Mecca. So when we go here, this is, we have the sa'i and then the jamarat. And then we talked about the Umrah pillars and obligations. And then we talked about the 8th and the 9th and the 10th and the 11th and the 12th and the 13th. And then you'll be in state of istiqamah till death. And this is one of the signs of the acceptance of Hajj, is that the person, his actions after Hajj is different than he was before Hajj. That's why the issue of al-istiqamah, to be steadfast upon the deen of Allah. Someone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped them to go for Hajj, chose them to be the delegation of the Muslim to go to the house of Allah and to do the acts of Hajj, then they return differently. And this is the sign of acceptance in which they repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before and after, inshallah. There are many things that maybe we didn't mention, but hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, this can be something that we start with. And then if you have any questions for whatever time is left or anything that I missed, please ask, inshallah.